With that, we would like to begin our opening statements. Andrew Yang, how are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be able to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday with you all. I'm known as the presidential candidate who wanted to give everyone money, and I'm the first person to say that it was not my idea. It was an idea championed by Dr. King, a guaranteed minimum income, and it is what he was fighting for when he was assassinated. I recently had the privilege of touring Dr. King's childhood home with his son, Martin Luther King III, who is co-chairing my mayoral campaign. And we walked through his father's house and looked out at the view out of the front stoop. And he said that you could see very clearly there were the rich families on one side and then the poor families on the other. And this is the work that his father wanted to do to address the three evils that he dedicated his life to combating: racism, poverty, and war. And I believe that Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday has been sanitized, where we all watch on TV every year where it says, "I have a dream," but it doesn't talk about his vision of a fair and just society that he was fighting for when he was killed. We need to make New York City the place that realizes his dream and build a trickle-up economy. And this is something that I'm thrilled now mayors around the country have picked up, including some of like the bright young stars, Aja Brown, Ross Baraka, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and hopefully we can make Dr. King's vision a reality right here in New York.
To start off the conversation, we wanted to start by asking you about an issue that has really been on the minds of so many families and teachers and advocates, and I'm sure yourselves as well, is the issue of school integration. So just going to get right to it. Do you want the current temporary elimination of middle school screens to stay in place permanently if elected mayor? And how would you address the issue of screens at the high school level? And then secondly, in terms of reforming the admissions process at the city's specialized high schools, would you get rid of the test or keep it? And would you repeal or keep Hecht Calandra, the state law that mandates the use of the test at the original Big Three specialized high schools, in place?
I'd love to chime in here. I'm a public school parent. I remember being shocked when we brought one of my 4-year-olds for a test. I was like, how the heck are you testing a 4-year-old? Like, my 4-year-old can't do a whole lot. So that said, I believe we've been failing so many of New York school children for years and decades, even generations. But if you get rid of these tests and screens, it will make you feel better, but it does not undo the failure in a meaningful way. All it does is it removes the clear marker that shows you that you've been failing people of color and children who are not properly prepared. So what we should do is expand the criteria to include things like background, the sort of adversity you may be facing, interviews. Like, to me, it's ridiculous and insane that anyone thinks a test as it's on its own can determine where your kid should go to school. Like, I think that's nuts. And so we should have a test, because the fact is these kids are going to have to take a test to go to college. So removing the test does not actually help prepare them for where we hope they arrive. But we can have multiple goals. And it is completely immoral that our schools do not represent the most diverse city in the world in the most selective areas. And that's something we can change. But the way you change that is not by saying, look, we removed the gate and then now you're prepared. Because that's just a cop-out, really. Like, what we have to do is get into the guts of it and say, we've been failing you. We want to help, but we want to help you in a way that's going to be inclusive and retain standards that you're going to be facing when you're trying to get into college.
I want to talk a little bit about the pandemic. We are in a resurgence of the coronavirus pandemic right now. But back in the spring, when the city was in real trouble during the pandemic, certain hospitals like Elmhurst Hospital was being overrun, while just a few miles away, other hospitals had beds that sat empty. So I'm wondering, if you were mayor, what are you going to do to prepare New York City's healthcare infrastructure for the next global pandemic?
Jeff, I think that you're asking the wrong question. You asked, what are we going to do about the next pandemic? I'm going to say that we are nowhere near getting through this one in any kind of shape that we want to be. I was just in Elmhurst today, and our healthcare system is still being swamped right now. But even as vaccines are being rolled out in a way that I know is very frustrating to everyone here, and it's frustrating to many New Yorkers at home who are watching this, if we sit on our hands and think, well, after vaccines get out to 10%, 20%, 30% of people, then those 30% will be confident going back to work, going to restaurants and bars. The fact is, you're not even sure what that recovery curve looks like. New York City has to actually drive that curve. And the way we drive that curve is we get a vaccination passport on our smartphones and devices, where the only piece of information on it is that I've been vaccinated. And then after you get a critical mass of people who are vaccinated, they can go into an office building, they can go into a restaurant, they can go to even a Broadway theater and know that everyone in that facility has been vaccinated. And that's how you drive a recovery from this pandemic and make New York City the comeback city it needs to be. We might not even make it through this pandemic intact unless we get our acts together. We need to build a modern tech infrastructure right now. And then if we get this right, when the next pandemic comes, we'll actually have a way of contact tracing that we should have done in this pandemic. Now that's a very tall order, but we have to start with this one. And if we get this one right, we'll be much better prepared for the next one.
As a healthy Black woman who almost died trying to carry a child, what is it that the people who we are dealing with, who are looking to be New York City mayors, would do to do things differently? And not to just say, oh, I'm sorry about what you experienced, but actually to see what we've done and to encounter these statistics of the ways in which we're most likely to die as Black women or other women of color. And what would you do that would be differently? I would love to hear, because we still have y'all on the call. I want to hear y'all tell us what is in your policy platforms to keep people like me and people like my other women of color from dying here in New York City policy-wise. Is that a fair question?
I'd love to answer this. You've probably seen in the chat, both of my sons.
Wait, hold on.
Sorry, by doula. We should just be paying midwives and doulas the same things that we're paying OBGYNs. The fact is, women were helping women deliver babies for eons.
Hold on. Because we have a format that we have to stick to. And you have an option to answer that question. But we need to be respectful of the other candidates who have a question to ask. And then you can feel free to go ape shit all you want. Andrew, what you need to be schooled on.
Well, first, what a tremendous gathering of activists. I feel privileged to be a part of it. And I'm going to share an activist story that's very, very familiar with you all. So I was in Georgia knocking on doors with Martin Luther King III. And when we knocked on doors, everyone who saw Martin said that they were childhood playmates. And who were we knocking on doors on behalf of? Reverend Raphael Warnock, the successor to Martin Luther King at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And you know what that activism resulted in? Reverend Warnock being the deciding vote in the US Senate that could activate tens, hundreds of billions of dollars for New York City, New York State, our communities. I mean, like, that's just activism. That's activism at work. And I wanted to share that image with you of Martin knocking on doors for Reverend Warnock, because like that is what I believe the legacy that we're celebrating this weekend. The question I had was a pretty broad question, but it is the question that I think a mayor should be asking, which is, if you imagine that I was your mayor and I had that privilege, what is the one thing you would want me to focus on? I know we've seen a lot of that, and so I feel like we've already covered some of this ground, because you would have to say that we would focus on mental health and police justice and a number of other things. Really, like, I loved the idea of the wholesale transformation that Luis and other people were talking about. because he's right that there is no one program that's going to solve a problem that's been building up for generations and decades and centuries. But if there was one thing that, let's say, I'll make it a little bit tougher. One thing that we have not discussed yet tonight that you would want your future mayor to focus on, what would it be?
Education.
You know, I'm actually going to throw this out because I've got the mic for just a minute, and you can tell it's kind of like someone here.
Sorry, it would be.
Just go ahead and text it into the window because I can see it all, and this way I'll get like a compilation from everyone in addition to the person who's speaking. Sorry about that, but this is just a way I could get more info.
Yeah. So
I got a question for you. You're a tech guy. How the hell do you print out the chat?
This
is three dots
is beyond the tech candidate's knowledge, so I'll have to ask one of my people and get back to you on that. But the chat is epic; it is true, and that is.
Take a screenshot.
It goes like 10 screens long, though. It's tricky. You're right.
Listen,
Right. No, I could cut in and say just if the answer is not policing, I don't know what it is. But
well, I would say
I'm hoping that's what you're headed towards.
I would say gun violence and trafficking, getting guns in the hands and of these kids from state to state. I-95, I feel the mayor that comes in should really focus on stopping some of this gun violence.
I would say
guns and coming into our city and our state, because we are killing each other. We losing our kids so fast. I mean, it's killing them. We killing each other faster than the pandemic. I know it sounds crazy, but I deal with it. Every day I'm getting a call, twice and 3 times a day now on gun violence. Whoever the mayor is, please, we really have to do something about this gun trafficking, illegal guns getting into our kids' hands.
Mr. Yang, I would say the question is a flawed question.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such thing as the one issue.
That's right.
This is New York City. It's the biggest, baddest city in the country.
Yeah.
The whole country needs New York to come back. It is a very complex question. It cannot be reduced to such a simple question.
Yeah.
All of these things are connected. There's no separation between gun violence and education and housing and homelessness.
All works together.
It all works together. We want to, over time, hear your vision and everybody else that's running for mayor that speaks to the complexity of all of these issues as you've heard them articulated throughout this evening. There's no one soundbite answer that any of us are looking for. We have no time to play around with this stuff. I'm actually sick of hearing of just a lot of talk about a lot of stuff. And I get it. This is family because we've been doing this clapback for almost a year. So we those of us who are true clapbackers, like we know what it is, right? So welcome to the clapback. But I would just say to you again, with all due respect, that what we're really looking to hear is about how you take complex issues that really represent what New York is all about and talk to us about, what your approaches will be to that.
I agree.
I love it, David. Thank you.
And this is Jackie Williams, and I think it's disrespectful to put it in one format as this one question. As David Banks said, our issues are too complex as a city. Our city is a business, and we have several issues. A lot of them. We have so many issues.
Can also add that I think absolutely I ditto everything everybody else said. We have these things called $1 million blocks here in New York City. And I think if you went to those spaces and you started in those neighborhoods, everything that we talked about are the same places where you'll see all those things happening, whether it's schools that need equitable funding, police violence, gun violence, all those things. We know the neighborhoods to go to. The reality is that we have not had the political will to go into those spaces because of all the things we talked about today, right? To allow these things to happen, allow someone else to make money off of us, Black and brown bodies, once again, allows them to lock us up, allows them to create excuses of why we need to be locked up. So I think those neighborhoods and places are good opportunities and places to start and begin to look at how do we ensure that in those communities that there are jobs and all the things that people talked about, mental health services, et cetera, as a way. And I agree, like there's no one issue, right? You do education, there's still other things happening. So
I want to add too, when I first got into office, I came from the art world. I funded and founded an art institution in Brooklyn. And when I ran for office, my goal was to focus in on the arts.
Oh, beautiful, Lori.
In many ways, right? In many ways, I naively thought by not having ever run for office before that I could focus in on one particular thing in order to achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve throughout my district. But the challenge is that once you get in, you have to learn how to very quickly chew gum and to address all of the complex issues in your district right now. I went from being a museum director and curator to fast forward, putting together a strategy for the rollout for the vaccine, for putting together the strategy for COVID relief and getting out PPE and masks and going to making sure that our schools get their computers, to making sure that we do all of these different things. Particularly, we have to feed thousands of people in our district every week. And most of these programs are not funded. We've got to go and shake down people all over the city to get funding for the Bed-Stuy campaign against hunger. We got to twist arms with Fresh Direct. We got to twist arms with Wegmans. We got to get the volunteers. We got to go out there ourselves and distribute food all throughout the community, while at the same time passing legislation and securing $110 million from Medgar Evers College and Medgar Evers Preparatory High School. Like, you got to be able to be.
I love it, Lori. You know what you sound like to me? You sound like an activist, an entrepreneur, a get shit done person. And that really is the challenge. I agree with you all that the next mayor needs to be like a Swiss Army knife to the nth degree, because at this point we have crises facing us on so many fronts. To me, if you're going to try and address this omnic crisis, if you want to call it that, to me, it starts with putting money into people's hands, because that's actually a more effective way to alleviate some of the varied problems associated with poverty. But you're all 100% right that it's like, if you can imagine where we are, we need to somehow grow in let's call it like 360 degrees at once. It's going to be a monumental challenge. I would love the opportunity to take on that challenge. And I really appreciated the opportunity to learn from you all tonight. I learned so much. And I'm just so blown away by you all, because I sense that you all are like, in so much, you're like the leaders in glue that like tie your communities and this city together. And we all owe you so much. Like it's really, it's beautiful. Like who you are, what you stand for, it's beautiful. You can feel it even through a Zoom. If we were in a physical room together, I know there'd be this energy that's unlike anything else. I know some of you have experienced that energy in better times, but I'm incredibly grateful to be here.
Thank you, Andrew, for coming. Happy anniversary. It's your 10th anniversary. Appreciate it. We appreciate you staying with us. Ray, you can address.
I really appreciate it all. Thank you all. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
Thank you.
Put the money in our hands. 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 Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.